But Dani, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm glad that you've managed to make a little bit of time out of your day to come on and speak to myself all about music. So if I'm right, Los Angeles, it should be morning time for yourself?
It is. Yes, it's 10 a.m. here. So is it 6 or 7 in Scotland?
It's 6 p.m. in Scotland.
Okay. How do you pronounce your name?
Ian.
Ian. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
But it's always interesting. I've done quite a lot of podcasts with other musicians, actually from Los Angeles, and a lot of them are from Melbourne in Australia. So it's always interesting trying to figure out the time difference.
Yeah.
It always makes it a bit fun. But Dani, we're going to speak about all things music for yourself. So how did you get into music, your influences, learning your instrument, songwriting, gigging, all that exciting stuff that comes with being a musician. But before we get started, though, how are you actually doing?
I'm doing pretty well. We're in a massive heat wave in Los Angeles right now, so it is nearly unbearable. But I just had a huge performance last week at the Troubadour, which is a really iconic stage. And to be able to be on that stage with my music, with a full house of an audience, I'm still riding that high right now. So I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing about Los Angeles, especially from the other side of the world where I am. It's so, like the Troubadour, you're saying, you've got the Viper Room, you've got the Whiskey. They're so iconic because there's been so many bands and musicians over the years, going right back to the 60s, that have appeared. And here, I actually had the chance, I was out in Los Angeles a couple of times, but the last time I was there was maybe 2005 time, and I actually got to go to the Whiskey. And it's funny because once you actually go inside it, it's not that different from any other live venue. It's just the history that's behind it, the amount of famous people that have appeared in there, and it's a bit like the Troubadour as well. It's just there's all these cool places that you don't really get in Scotland.
Yeah, this last year has been pretty incredible for me in terms of the stages I've been able to play, like the Whiskey. I'm a regular over at the Viper Room, but Hotel Cafe and the Troubadour. Yeah, I mean, the sound, the acoustics are so incredible, and like you said, the history is really what sets these venues apart. So.
Yeah, but Dani, going back to the very beginning for yourself, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Grand Forks, North Dakota, so it's the very middle of America, all the way up at the border of Canada. It's a very, very cold place to grow up.
Is it colder than Scotland?
It is often named the coldest place on the planet, so it's cold.
That's fine. And so when you were younger, growing up, were you exposed to music from a young age? Like, were your parents or that into like playing music?
Yeah, well, I have come from a very creative family. So I'm the baby of 4 kids, and we all had a creative streak. And I would say my dad always wanted to take piano lessons, and he came from a poor farm family, so he never got to do that. So he made sure to provide all those lessons for us as kids. So my sister is an incredible pianist. My brother played guitar. We all sang. And I was the one that just would never give up the microphone.
So would I be right in saying, I know that obviously you play the guitar. I know that I'd looked at a couple of things before we spoke, so I know that you started out on like playing the piano and things like that, but was singing your first instrument?
I think I was probably born singing. I was always singing and humming a song. And then my sister, as I said, was a really incredible pianist, and so she was practicing for hours and hours a day, and she's my big sister, and so I would just, idolize her. Anytime she'd step off the piano, I'd jump over there and I'd try and teach myself a little something, because she was, I think, 8 years older than me, so there was definitely an age gap there. So we weren't necessarily close friends growing up, but I started teaching myself piano first. And I started writing songs when I was 9, original music. And then when I was in college, I bought myself a guitar. And piano and guitar are writing instruments for me. So I'm not proficient at them, but I do occasionally perform with them. But more than anything, they're writing tools for me. But yeah, singing has always been my forte and my focus in terms of music.
I was going to ask, I know that you'd saying that you purchased a guitar after high school when you were at college. I was going to ask why the guitar, why not another instrument, but is it purely because piano and guitar are probably the two easiest instruments to help you write songs?
Exactly, because I also played the flute. It's really hard to sing and play the flute, so I had to find something that I didn't have to use my mouth for. And I was living in New York City at the time, and I didn't have, or maybe I did have a keyboard with me, but I wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't inspiring me the way that I needed it to. And honestly, there was a cute boy involved that was going to teach me guitar lessons if I got a guitar.
Yep.
So yeah, it's rock and roll. There's always a little bit of love driving the steering wheel.
So apart from the cute guy, who were some of your influences back then, and even maybe just now? Who are some of your musical influences?
Well, my grandmother, it's so funny, as I do these as I do these interviews, I realize just how influential all of my family members are in who I am as a musician today. So my grandmother had bought me an album, and I think it was called Little Girls All Grown Up, and it was like a double stack album that had music from like the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so I grew up listening to her favorite music. So there's a few of those songs like Sugar Sugar and Leader of the Pack and things like that, which are these all-American songs from, I would say, 40s, 50s, I'm not sure. But they were written by Jeff Barry, who's a famous songwriter. And then when I moved to LA, Jeff Barry took me under his wing as a songwriter. So it's like all these great full circle moments. But that was what I was initially raised on, and some Elvis. And I was always in musical theater, and I was always I was training in classical music and everything. And that was such a great foundation for me as an artist to get all this classical training. But I always felt like I was playing a role, which I loved at the time. But it wasn't until I bought my guitar and I started really focusing in and honing my songwriting skills, where I'm like, oh, that's what my voice sounds like, instead of trying to replicate a choral sound or a character from this musical. It's like, no, this is my voice. India Ari has been a huge influence for me when I was younger. She was the first one that made me actually pick up a guitar and take songwriting seriously. There was just one song. It was the first song that shifted my soul, that just moved me to the point where I was like, I have to write music. I have to learn how to play this song. If I'm going to play this song, I have to learn to play guitar. So that was actually probably the origin story of why I needed to pick up the guitar, was because of this song called I'm Ready for Love.
It is amazing how listening to someone else's song just one song can inspire you so much to pick up your instrument or to write a song or a poem, whatever it might be. But it's amazing. I don't know what it is, but I play guitar and sing, and you can listen to a song 40, 50 times, and it might just be that one day that you hear it and something triggers in your head, and it can inspire you. And it's hard sometimes to tap into that, but when you do tap into it, it can make songwriting very easy, because sometimes songwriting can be very hard as well. But it's amazing how just hearing other people's songs can inspire you. And I've spoke about this before, that I can hear someone's song and it can inspire me to go and write a song. And the song that I write sounds nothing at all like the song that inspired me to write it. The subject matter is nothing alike, but there's just something there that inspired me to pick up the guitar and start writing. Is that kind of the same for yourself?
Absolutely, yes. I'm constantly inspired. Songwriting kind of a way of life for me. It's how I process my emotions, my experiences, how I channel my life, really. And so I walk around with a lyric book around me because I'm easily inspired and I have great access to my emotions and to my heart. And so I honor that and I protect that diligently. But yeah, that little spark of inspiration can really blossom into a completely different art. Sometimes it's a painting that I look at where I'm just really moved and like, oh, I should write a song about that. So sometimes, yeah, I'm fortunate where I get a fair amount of inspiration internally, but also externally from my surroundings. And I live in Los Angeles. I'm surrounded by beauty and creativity and inspired people. So it's a wealth of inspiration.
I mean, the beauty of music is that there is no right or wrong. You know, what works for me might not work for yourself. However you do it might not work for me, and everyone's different. But you mentioned something there that you carry a book around, like for writing lyrics in. So when you're writing a song, do you have a preferred method? As in, do you write the words first and come up with the music later? Or do you generally write a sort of melody first and then fit the words to that? Like, what's your preferred way of writing a song?
Generally, I start with a brain dump. Like if I've got a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts, but I was raised on Shakespeare, so my internal monologue is in iambic pentameter. So naturally, the cadence that I think in is in this very rhythmic cadence that really lends itself to songwriting. So I won't think, I'll just write, and I'll dump it all on the page, and then I'll go through and I'll sort it out, whittle it down to the good stuff. And because I have such a natural cadence in my songwriting, I hear the melody. I like my melodies to be a little bit conversational, right? When you're talking with somebody, you can hear the melody. I have a rather melodic voice, so you can hear the notes that go all around. So the melodies just kind of arrive for me. But there's other times where I love collaborating. And so every time I collaborate with somebody, it changes my process. So I try not to get too stuck to the structure of how this should be done, which is actually a really good exercise when you're starting songwriting, is to build that formula that works for you, that you can kind of follow along to build your craft. And then, as with all skill sets for me, whether it's songwriting or guitar or rehearsals or anything, like I know that foundation is there, that I have that training. Now I can let go of that training and not think of it, and it still exists. It's still supporting that free flow state that I prefer to exist in, where it's not so structured and it can be a little chaotic, but it kind of opens me up as a conduit for the songs just to be like, oh, here you go.
That fascinates me as a musician myself, because very, very rarely do I ever write the lyrics first. It's always the music that comes first for me. That's just the way that I do it. And there is occasionally times where I will come up with an idea if I'm watching a movie or reading a book, and I can write a whole song, but very rarely do those words end up attached to music. Normally it's always the music first for myself, but I mean, there isn't a right or a wrong way. And the other thing you'd said as well is co-writing. So that can be tricky as well, because a lot of times people are precious. If you come up with a song idea, in your head you might think, this is how I want it, and the other person might take it off in a completely different direction from what you were thinking. And sometimes it's pretty cool to allow them to do that, because you get a different perspective. You might come up with a little bit of magic that you weren't previously thinking yourself, but it depends whether or not you're open to hearing somebody else's idea and possibly ditching your idea to go with their idea. So some people, they struggle with that because they have it set in their mind, this is how I see the song. But it depends. Again, it's different for every musician, and there isn't a right or a wrong way. But so, Dani, I was listening to some of your songs today. They're available on iTunes. You can download them. You can stream them on various platforms, and it's a full band that's playing. So, as you'd previously said, I was wondering, was it session musicians or was it an actual band? So what you had said was that you do have an actual band, but for recording purposes, you tend to use session musicians to get the recording part. But you do have a co-writer who is your guitarist. And what you're saying was that not only him, but the rest of the band, you had actually met on jam night at the Viper Room on a Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
And that was prior to lockdown. Yes,
and then after lockdown, we came together as a band and started making music videos to keep ourselves creative, and then Aaron Medina and I started writing songs together. Aaron does come to he does record with me in the recording studio as well, but Michael Blue is my music producer, and so he comes with this collection of world-class musicians that when I work with him, I get to use those studio musicians, because it's a very different breed of musicians, a live musician versus a studio musician. I'm coming to learn, and there's definitely crossover, 100%. But there's different needs for the different purposes. So,
do you like the recording process? Because some people view it as, I need to write these songs in order to get out and play them live in front of people. There's other people, if they were able to, they would happily just spend their whole time in the recording studio writing and recording and potentially never really play live. How does it sit for yourself?
I just love the creative process. I love the arc of it. I love the originating the muse of the song, writing it. I love developing it. I love recording it. I love performing it. And I'm learning to love releasing it. But I've found a way to detach myself from the outcome of the song. But I love the arc of it, doing all of it.
If you had to pick just one, so for the rest of your life, you can either write and record only, or you can perform live, but never write and record. Which one would you have to pick?
You can't separate them. I refuse to play this game. But I thrive on stage. Stage is where my heart is. That's where I'm the most fulfilled, and I can ride that high for, like I'm riding the high from performing at the Troubadour last week. It's been a week, and I'm still taking it all in. So I'm at the heart of it. I am a live artist.
Here's a fun question for you. So obviously I've never seen you perform live, but what's the difference between Dani Hagan that I'm sitting talking to right now and the Dani Hagan that I would see on stage if I was to come and see you perform? Is there a difference?
Definitely. I think so. I think when I get up on stage, you step into this persona, this alter ego. When the lights hit and the sound raises up behind you and the audience is in front of you, it's like living in a different realm. So
it's fascinating because I had quite a few episodes ago now. I had the singer of a rock band from Glasgow on, and he came on the podcast. We'd never met before, and we spoke like we're doing just now. And 2 or 3 months later, I went to see the band perform in Glasgow. Mm-hmm. And, on the podcast, you would almost, I wouldn't have said he was shy, but you would have said he was very calm, quiet. And as expected, the minute he hit the stage, it was like watching a different person. Mm-hmm. He was a front man to a rock band. He's jumping about the stage. He's out in the audience playing his guitar and singing. It was like two different people. And it's fascinating because there's a lot of musicians like that. There's a lot of musicians are actually shy, quite reserved off of stage. But you would think being able to stand in front of people and perform, you need to be quite brave. It's not an easy thing to do. But I think people forget when you're watching someone that's good at doing it, they make it look easy. It's a bit like watching anybody perform sports or anything. If you're watching someone that's good at it, they make it look easy. But it can be surprising the difference in someone sitting talking to them during the day and then going to see them at night perform on stage. It's like two different people.
It takes a lot of effort to appear effortless, and that requires, I don't know, you put so much, you exert so much energy when you're up on stage, that a lot of musicians, a lot of like lead singers are actually homebodies. We're actually very, I need my alone time. I need to be alone with my thoughts, my emotions, and my music to create what I'm going to present on the stage. So, you know, the night of a performance, I'm up on stage and it's so rock and roll. It's so like, I'll thrive there. And then, you know, you have a night of celebration afterwards. And then afterwards, it's like, oh, okay, battery's empty. Time to go home. I need to recharge. I need to create more. Don't talk to me.
Funny though, because you yourself were saying that you are singing in the band. You don't generally play on an instrument on stage. You're singing. And that's different from every other musician that's on stage, because when you're on stage, if you're playing the guitar or the bass or the drums, you can, if you want, focus on your instrument. Especially if you're not playing an instrument, if you're just standing at the front of that stage singing, you're eye to eye with people and you can't hide behind anything else. So there's this, you've got to have maybe a different persona as such.
Well, for me, I love playing my guitar and my piano up on stage, but because I'm not proficient at those instruments, it's a distraction for me. So I have to really think, where are my fingertips landing on my instrument? I have to focus on this, and then it draws my focus, so I'm not giving as much to the audience. I'm trying to not mess up. But when I can put my instruments down and I have these incredible musicians behind me, I don't have to do that work. I sing completely differently. I have access to a different level of my talent that gets dimmed when I'm distracted by an instrument, because I'm not an instrumentalist. It's a writing tool for me. I am a singer. That's my instrument, and it's a full body expression. I'm also a dancer at heart, so I've been a dancer my whole life. I need to move. I can't sing without moving my body, and it's really hard to, you know, spin around while you're playing the keyboard.
How do you capture that energy then, that live energy on stage? How do you capture that and bring it to the recording studio? Because that's another thing a lot of bands have said. You know, there's a lot of bands have said to me that, you know, the recordings that they've done, they're great recordings, but they just never manage to capture what they do live, because when they play live, they just take it up a whole new level that they really, really struggle to capture in the recording studio. Is that something that you find with yourself can be an issue?
It's a skill set. It's just like anything else. You have to hone it. You have to practice it. I have hundreds of recordings that are unusable from however long ago, because I had to learn this new skill set. And now I'm at the point where, okay, I'm working with Michael Blue. I've got Aaron Medina. I've got all of these incredible, like world-renowned musicians. I've got Greg Bissonette as my drummer. He's Ringo Starr's drummer, is my drummer. Like, that's mind-blowing to me. So I have to show up on their level. This is why I love collaboration, because it makes me rise up to my highest abilities. And it's a skill set that I've honed, like learning how to bring that live energy, having that team of people to help facilitate that. So it's not easy, but I feel like I have arrived at that point where my recordings and my live performances are speaking the same language.
Excellent. So, Dani, we're obviously heading towards the later half of the year. So what is the plans for the rest of the year for yourself?
I'm planning on releasing probably 2 more singles. The thing about the music industry in Los Angeles, once November hits, it takes about a 2.5-3 month break. Like the entertainment industry in general goes on vacation. So I'm not planning on playing live shows. I'm not planning on releasing music through that time, because it's just business-wise, it doesn't make sense. So I'll be releasing, I've got another single coming out on September 27th that I'm really excited about because the music video is going to be, it's so good. It's so good. So I'm excited for the next 2 releases that I'm going to do. And then when LA goes on holiday, that's when I'll do a lot of the behind the scenes work where I'll do the photo shoots and a couple more music videos and batch up all of my content and creations so that when February hits, I can hit the ground running and have a whole year's worth of art to release over the next year. So again, there's this seasonal arc in terms of creating and releasing and the business side of things. The business side of the music industry used to absolutely drain me. But again, I have this incredible team of people that I can lean on so that I can do my job, they do their job. And yeah, it's a nice rhythm I've got going.
What's the reason for it going quiet towards the end of the year?
The holidays. There's not much in terms of like filming TV shows or live performances. People are traveling, they're having holiday parties and things like that. So like last year I made the mistake of trying to tour through the month of December, and going out and touring, there was just a fraction of the audience that should have been there because it was the holidays. They were, rather than going to see some random artist, they're going to go and spend time with their family. So it's just the natural, the season of LA.
It's funny that you say that because I would have said it was the opposite in Scotland. Right over
I guess I'm touring in Scotland in December.
Right over the Christmas period, like your October, November, December is probably the 3 busiest months, some of the busiest months of the year. January, it will be really quiet. February, probably quiet, and then it'll start to pick up again in March. But definitely right up to New Year, it will be some of the busiest months for Scotland.
Well, we've been talking about taking me to touring overseas, so I'll keep that in mind as I plan my tour dates.
So, Dani, we're obviously getting towards the end of our chat, but what I like to do is end things with some fun questions, because we've been quite technical up to this point, talking about music for all the musicians that are out there. So we're going to end things with some fun questions for yourself. So, imagine you've got a time machine. Imagine you could go back in time, anywhere in the world, big gig, small gig, I'll let you decide, but what's the one gig, concert that you wish you could have attended?
Elvis.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched some videos of Elvis where he'll be playing a song and he'll pause and he'll make a mistake, and he's just so charming and charismatic. And this is decades ago, and it's in black and white, and I'm like, why is he making me blush when he's just like flirting with an audience member? So just to be in the room of that type of charisma, Elvis.
And he's a legend as well. I mean,
I actually covered him. I do a lot of jam nights here in Los Angeles. It's just a great way to stay up on stage and keep your skills sharp and everything. And last week, the theme was animals. So we sang songs that had an animal in the title. So I sang Wild Horses by Bishop Briggs, and I sang Hound Dog by Elvis, and it was so much fun.
What's funny is when I'm in the pub doing gigs, I always start with Burning Love by Elvis. But the reason I start with it is because it's easy on the voice, so it's the song to help me warm up to do the next gig. But it's funny, like Elvis, I don't know when it was that he passed away, but you know, he's one of those artists that in 50 years' time he will still be just as popular as he was when he was alive.
Yeah. And you know, honestly, I don't think the music industry has evolved so much. It's more about continuity. It's more about consistently releasing than it is about releasing this iconic album that's going to survive for decades. And so I'm constantly trying to adjust my mindset into current times because I like the albums that are timeless, and it's really hard to be timeless when the industry is so saturated. Yeah, just a random thought.
Another question for you then. So you do singing, you play the guitar, you can do a bit of a piano. Is there another instrument that you wish you could play?
I wish I could play saxophone. And
Yep.
I have a theory that I would be really good at it because I played the flute, and it's actually the same fingering on the flute as it is the saxophone. I've just never had a saxophone to play, so...
Maybe it's the same for the bagpipes as well.
That and the violin. I've always wanted to... I picked up a violin for the first time with one of my girlfriends a couple weeks ago, and if you give me an instrument in about 10 minutes, I can fake my way into you thinking that, oh, maybe she actually plays that instrument.
It's funny that you say that one because this will be episode 57, I think, that I've done. So I've asked the same question to 56 other people, and piano and saxophone are the two most popular answers.
Good instruments.
Don't know why, but so another question then for you. So you think of all the amazing songs that have been recorded over the years by all different artists. What's the one song you wish you could have sat in the recording studio to witness it being recorded?
I Will Always Love You, Whitney Houston.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Waiting for that big note.
And just let that high note just like wash over me. Yeah. Again, just this iconic musician with crazy talent to be in the same room. That would be pretty wild. I don't think there was
auto-tuning back then, so that was just 100% talent being recorded. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the last question for you, Dani. So, Mount Rushmore, who is the 4 bands or musicians for yourself that you just, at the top of your pile, you just love them?
Nothing But Thieves.
Okay.
I'm obsessed. Grace Potter.
Yep.
ZZ Ward. And I'm a new fan, but I am a fan of Nirvana.
All right, okay. There you go.
And Nirvana's actually been influencing some of my next song that's coming out is called Like That. It comes out on September 27th, I believe, and it's got some Nirvana undertones to it, in my opinion.
Okay, I do like I like the rock stuff, and obviously I loved all the grunge kind of bands. I was always more Pearl Jam rather than Nirvana. But I love that last question because regardless of who I ask it to, you get 4 different answers, and it also, regardless of what music, what type of music you're known for, it doesn't determine the answers that you get. So if you're a rock person, you might not necessarily give 4 rock bands. Mm-hmm. It's always fascinating to hear, what do other people like? Because what I've found out as well, musicians, regardless of who I speak to all across the world, we're all able to relate because we're all doing similar things, and it's cool to connect this way.
Absolutely.
But Dani, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been nice to meet you, nice chatting to you. I look forward to seeing the new songs that come out, to seeing this magical music video that you're not giving anything away. It's a bit of a top secret, so we'll wait for that to come out, and I'll make sure that I get it shared on social media as well, and I'll keep up to date with all your future releases, and I wish you all the luck in the future as well.
Thank you so much, Ian. It's an honor to be on your podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.